Okay, so I started university in 2005, and that was a couple of years after the film Legally Blonde had come out. And I studied Japanese, and I went on my first day or so on. I went to my next door neighbor, who is a girl called Lindsay. She was studying law, and we were swapping notes about what our course is like and what the other people in our class was like. And I was so surprised. My cohort, my class was about 50 or so people, but hers was 100, maybe even 200 people. There's so many people studying law that year. It was the Legally Blonde effect. So many people, a whole generation of people had been inspired by the story of Elle Woods going, dressing smartly and going into the courtroom and shouting, "I object," and saving the world by, through practicing law. And who can blame them? I've worked with young people for quite a while now within the sort of careers, progression, and skills sphere. And I can see two big trends right now. The first is around influencers and YouTubers. So young people are watching all of this content from YouTubers. They're going out, they're making videos of their lives and taking photos and stuff and having these fantastically fun lives, and then making money off of it as well. And some of them, lots and lots of money from it. The other big trend that I can see is around criminology. And I think that the podcast serial has a lot to answer for this. Since that came out, there's been so many different true crime series and podcasts and things on Netflix. And young people are watching this and they're becoming really motivated into learning how the minds of criminals work. And if I had £1 for every time a young person has said to me they want to understand, the psychology behind criminals and to try and stop the crime before it starts, I probably wouldn't have to work right now. I'd have so many pounds in my pocket. So what's the issue with this? It's not wrong to dream, right? It's not wrong to have, things that you want to go down and to do in the future. This may be a controversial thing to say, but for me, the issue is that both of those career paths are equally unlikely. So both of them, the intake to both of those careers are very, very small. You might be surprised to know that actually the intake of detectives and criminality, people who work in forensics and stuff, is actually really small. And if you speak to experts in the field, they only take from particular universities, like a very small handful of people from particular courses and so on. So it's a really small intake. Influence as well. It's not just the case that you go out and take some photos and suddenly you're famous and you're going viral and stuff. Both of these things, the true crime series and also the YouTube videos don't show the true picture of what these careers are like. You don't see the years and years and years that these influencers are working for free and working really hard. It doesn't show the hours, absolute hours that they spent editing videos. Even editing podcasts and so on takes such a long time. I know someone who he does he's quite big in the podcasting world, and he does it on top of his full-time job. He spends his whole Sunday editing up his podcast to put out, and it's about 50 minutes or so. For the true crime series as well, it doesn't show the whole, if you are a detective, it's not the case that you're going out with, your little Sherlock hat and you're solving crimes and, everything tidies up at the end of the day. That's not the full picture. So I'm going to just take a pause here and just reiterate, I'm not against people having dreams or going towards dream jobs. I mentioned before that I studied Japanese. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, I spent a lot of time playing video games. And my mum, she despaired. Why are you spending so much time playing video games? You're rotting your brain. You are never going to get a job. You're going to be unemployable because you're just spending so much time playing video games. Well, actually, all of that time and all of those skills within video games came into real good hand when I worked for Nintendo and I was a Japanese to English translator. And I had days, weeks on end where I'd literally play video games from 9 to 5. I talk a lot in schools about working, doing a dream job such as that. And I'm always incredibly honest about the hard work that it took to get there and all of the things that I did to make sure that I was able to get that job, and also give the full picture as well. It isn't the case that you just rock up to work every day, select a game off the shelf and then sit on your sofa and play. Sometimes you're playing Wii Fit for 3 weeks straight and you're doing like that salsa game and stuff. So I'm always very honest. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not against people having dream careers. What I am trying to promote and what I'd like to talk to you about today is informed choices. This is what it's really, really important to help the next generation make informed choices. Now, of course, schools are doing a lot of great things. I've worked with the schools in the Cambridgeshire area for many years, helping them in their careers activities. And some schools are doing absolutely phenomenal things. But time and time again, it's been proven that the biggest influences in young people's lives are their parents and their families. And so I believe, and if you've heard of me before, heard me speak before, you will know that I'm a big fan of it takes a village to raise a child. So there's loads of things that we can do in the home and in culture to help improve informed choices. So I have 5 tips on how to improve the informed choices of your young person. So the first thing is to not dissuade. If your son and daughter comes to you and says that they want to do a career, or they aspire to do something that you think is not achievable, you think that maybe it's not a good career or anything, don't dissuade. And I know it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard to not be judgmental about this. But well, first of all, maybe unless you're an expert in that field, maybe you don't know. My mum didn't know that actually video games is a really big industry, and she didn't know that I would be, able to work in that field. But secondly, it just doesn't work. Like I would consider myself to be quite well informed about skills and careers and so on. But my youngest sister, she's 11 years younger than me. When she wanted to go and do architecture at university, I said to her, I'm not really sure about this. I don't think you should do this. I think, have you looked at degree apprenticeships in construction? They're really good, and the salaries are very good. And you wouldn't have. No, you are wrong. You're just biased. You're pro apprenticeship. Why are you telling me to do that? I don't want to do that thing. I'm going to go off and do architecture. And off she went. It didn't go very well, which I'll come back to in a moment. But even when you know your stuff and you're trying to inform them, it doesn't work dissuading them. So try to bite your tongue and go with it. The second thing is to ask why 4 times. Now, if you're helping a young person prepare for their UCAS personal statement, this comes in real good handy there. And I've used it time and time again with them as well. So they come to you and they say, okay, I want to go and study this. Cool, that sounds great. Why? And then the why for that, you usually get quite like a superficial, reply. Okay, I want to go help people, or I'm interested in it. That's really cool. Why? Slightly deeper. Okay, oh, that sounds good. Why? And then once you've asked why for the 4th time, you get to the real reason why they want to do it. Now, when I've asked this of young people before, sometimes I have absolutely heartwarming, amazing answers to that question. I've had a young person who lost her mum to a certain disease, and she wants to train to be a nurse so that she can help other people get through the thing. I've had loads of different really amazing things, but I've also had kids who it just turns out they watch a Netflix documentary and then they want to go study the thing. And so you get to really find what you're dealing with. What is it? Is it a true reason that maybe you didn't know that they had in them, or is it just Netflix? So that's a really good thing to do. The next thing is to look at facts. Now, you can, if you're trying to dissuade them and you're saying, I don't think that's a good idea, that's not a fact. You can argue with that. You can't argue with facts. If your young person is going to look at a course, maybe at university or college or so on, don't look at the rankings, especially with universities. I'm telling you, rankings don't mean anything. They don't mean that your young person is going to find success through that course, and it also doesn't mean that your young person is going to enjoy the course. You could go to the best university in the world and still have an awful time if it isn't the right thing for you. So instead, and especially when we're thinking about careers, look at the employability percentage. So especially university courses, they will have somewhere on their course page what percentage of graduates were employed, preferably related to that course, within 6 months of graduation. That's a really good statistic, a really good fact to look up, because you may find, I don't know, if you go into video game design, let's just say for argument's sake, maybe the employment percentage is around 30 or 40%, that's quite low. But there could be something that's sort of like diagonally, you know, a little bit connected to it that actually has a lot higher percentage. And it's all about thinking broadly about these skills. Maybe that it is that they want to work in the video games industry, but the skills that they're going to acquire, maybe there's a slightly better one that has a little bit more, you know, likelihood of success. And the other thing is to look up skills gaps as well. Now, I was just saying before we came on record, this morning I found that the World Economic Forum had published some information on skills gaps that I'd like to share with you. Now, you may think skills gaps is all about trying to encourage your young person to go learn how to code. You know, okay, coding is really important as a skill. We don't have enough people doing it, so go learn how to code. Actually, what they found is that the skills that are most in demand are critical thinking, analysis, problem solving, self-management, resilience, stress tolerance. These are the types of things that we're really lacking. And as somebody who recruits young people, I can see this as well. I was on a call last week with quite a high-ranking university, a very good university, and I was speaking with students and the careers team there, and also academics. And I was saying how, you know, when I'm recruiting for someone from our finance graduate program, we make them sit an Excel test. And one of the students said to me, well, if you're expecting us to do Excel tests, why aren't you teaching us how to do Excel? Why aren't you putting courses out there? No, mate, that's not my job. If you want to come onto our program, you need to go and look on YouTube or somewhere else. Go and find these skills. Have the self-motivation, a little bit of resilience as well, to go out there and have a look and problem solve this issue of you not knowing Excel, but you wanting this job. So I can definitely see it. It's not all about learning how to code. The next one is all about creating the environment at home where you talk about jobs a lot. Now, I know that you may think that your children don't have any interest in what you do as a job, but you'd be really surprised at how much they're taking in when you're talking about your work and what you do. I can say from a personal experience, you know, my dad was a fireman. And while I had absolutely no interest in like learning what he did, you know, putting out fires and road traffic accidents and stuff like that, I picked up quite a lot of, you know, things from him. So, for example, he tried and tried again to get a promotion, and he wasn't successful in the end. But just seeing his resilience, even now as an adult, I remember it very clearly. He was always a good manager as well. And then when he was talking about managing other people and the sort of problems that he was going through, again today, I remember that very clearly. So you never know what they're picking up from you. So talking about your job and the skills that you're using, the qualifications, if you use your degree or not, and you know, the things that you've picked up along the way is really important. And what's more, you can't be what you can't see. And I believe that truly. So if you have friends or family members come to visit, or maybe you're going out to meet people, encouraging them to talk about their jobs as well is really important, because the more jobs your young person can see, the broader their vision is, and the more things they can pick from. And it doesn't have to be completely contrived. You don't have to be like, so Auntie Susan, you're a project manager, what do you do? It doesn't have to be contrived like that. You can be a little bit more natural and stuff, but just encouraging people to open up and talk about their jobs is really important. And if your young person has said something that they want to go down into, trying to find somebody who does that thing for them to connect with is also really good. So I mentioned about my sister and architecture. When that didn't go through, when that fell through, she wanted to go do art. And again, I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. So instead of dissuading her and trying to tell her to do something else, we went around the Cambridge Open Studios event, which is where lots of different artists around Cambridge open up their homes and their studios, and you can go and check out their art and then, you know, speak to them as well. So I hired her a bike for the day. We got on our bicycles. We rode around, I don't know, 10 or 15 or so of these artists' homes, looked at their art, but then within earshot to each person, I asked them, you know, what does your career look like? Do you make all of your, you know, do you make all of your salary, all of your earnings from your art, or do you do side jobs? And it was a real mixture. Some people were like, you know, they had quite boring office jobs that they did to sustain their art. Some people did genuinely just make all of their money from their art. But she told me recently, actually, that she found that really valuable, that when we did that. She still went and did art, of course, but it's about that informed choice. She knew that it was going to be tough, and she knew that the likelihood of her being, you know, a full-time artist and doing beautiful art and selling it and making enough money to live off of that, she knows that that's not likely to happen. But if she did want it to happen, she'd have to work very, very hard for it. And that's where the informed choice is. The last thing is all about work experience. So the thing with my sister that that finally got her, well, you know, when she went off to do architecture, the thing that changed her mind was within her first year, she did 2 weeks work experience in an architecture firm. She didn't realize that it was an office job. She disliked sitting at a desk and tapping on a computer all day. And as soon as she had that, she dropped out, and she still had to pay her tuition fees for that term and so on. And so, you know, financially, it was an awful thing to do. I just really wish that she'd have done that work experience before she'd have gone to university. Please don't wait for the schools to come around and arrange work experience. Firstly, because not all schools do it. It is an added benefit. You know, it's an added thing that they can do. Second of all, especially if you're in Cambridge, one of my bugbears is that all the schools in Cambridge choose the same 2 weeks to do work experience. And so your child not only is battling out with all of their classmates and all of the people in their year group to get their dream placement, they're also battling against all the other schools in the area to get that thing. So if they, you know, I don't know, if they want to do something quite special, like work in a radio station or something like that, it's not going to happen. So using your contacts, maybe it's, you know, as easy as putting something out on LinkedIn and saying, you know, my child wants to do this. Does anyone have any connections or anything like that? A lot of businesses are working on virtual work experience right now. I know that I personally am. I'm looking into how can I create a virtual work experience program where, you know, that just in case next year that nothing has changed. So even logistically and geographically, your child might be able to participate in something from the safety of their own home, but, you know, access opportunities in London or, you know, Scotland or wherever they want to be. It's really, really important. So those are my top tips. Again, it's about promoting informed choices. It's not about breaking down dreams. Dream jobs can happen, but it's really important to understand the full nature of a job that your young person wants to do, and help them towards that goal. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much.